Everyone, welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer, Chris Carter. That is Nick Wright.
Good morning, Jenna Wolf.
It is Friday.
What up, C?
We got ourselves.
Dapping up everybody, the guests, everyone.
Dapping up everybody. I'm ready to go. I'm fired up. I want to get right into it today. I'm ready to go.
Well, let's get right into it. It was a great game last night.
Yeah.
It was a great game. You have to admit.
Great basketball game.
Regardless of the end result. We're going to start today's show with a brief tutorial on end-of-game situations. Rule number one, always know the score. Cavs and Warriors game one, and J.R. Smith did not get the tutorial. Less than 5 seconds to go in regulation, J.R. Smith had a chance to win this game, beat the Warriors, but basically dribbled out the clock instead. Smith was seen mouthing to LeBron afterwards, "I thought we were ahead." Cavs go on to lose in overtime. Warriors win this one 124-114, your final. Here is a very disgusted Ty Lue about it all at the end of regulation.
What did you say, or what did JR say to you in the locker room about the play at the end of regulation?
He thought it was over.
Thought it was over.
He thought we were up one.
George shot the free throw. I got the rebound. We were tied ball game. We had a timeout, and I was trying to get enough space because obviously KD is standing right there. Trying to get enough space to bring it out to get it, maybe get a shot off. And then I see him. I looked over at Bron. He looked like he was trying to call timeout, so I just stopped. And then the game was over.
You knew you were tied. You didn't think you were leading.
No, I seen it. I knew we were tied. It's just I thought we was going to call timeout because I got the rebound. I'm pretty sure everybody didn't think I was going to shoot over KD.
You have to ask him.
Well, the reason I ask you is because he was in there saying that I knew it was tied, and I was. So I'm just wondering, knowing it was tied, how would you now observe what you saw in that situation?
I don't know.
I guess that further goes along with my theory. I thought he was looking for LeBron. Yeah. I would have looked for LeBron, too.
Yeah. Did he think that the game was tied, or did he think that you guys had it salted away?
How do I know that?
Or did you discuss it at all with him at the end of the play?
No. They asked me if I talked to JR about it. I said no already. I knew it was a tie game. We was down one. George Hill went up. He made the first one. We got the offensive rebound. You know, I thought we were all aware of what was going on. That's my view. So I don't know what JR was thinking. I don't know the question that you're trying to ask.
I was just trying to see if you knew exactly what his state of mind was. Did he think that you guys had it won, or did he think he was trying to make a play? Not sure.
Okay. What do you mean I'm not sure? No, I don't know his state of mind.
Did you know if he knew the score?
Thank you.
It's such a, for lack of a better term, too bad that the game the end of regulation came down to that, because the Cavs really did have a chance to win it, and that clouds what could have been a fairly competitive game. CC, I'll start with you. What was your reaction to the end of game one?
It's not the way you want to see a game like this. You're talking about a championship atmosphere, game number one. These teams facing each other for the fourth time, the second year with Kevin Durant and LeBron. I've traveled around, been very fortunate. I've seen a lot of basketball. My brother played in the NBA with the Lakers and a number of other teams, and traveling around with Michael Jordan and Ron Harper and the Bulls. I've been to a lot of NBA finals. Like, I've seen a lot of great basketball. I'm talking about pressurized situations. I've never quite seen one end like this. A good friend of mine, Isaiah Thomas, we know about him in the Boston Garden throwing away the ball up under the bucket. We know about Magic Johnson in the Boston Garden. So there have been players that have done things similar to this. But I've never seen anything like this. As simple as the game's tied, your guy's shooting a free throw. You know you're trying to get the rebound. The reason why JR is there is not there for the rebound. It's there. If he makes it, they're up by one, he's going to press the backcourt.
Yeah.
That's the reason why he's there. So now the ball is short, and people won't even think about this. Kevin Durant didn't box him out. That's how he got the rebound.
I mean, it's just Kevin Durant gets bullied by a guy 7 inches shorter than him.
You know, so that right there is not the way you expect a game like this. And it seemed like all the air and all the hope came out of the Cavs. They didn't play the way they did in overtime, the way they had played the previous 4 quarters. And the Cavs deserved to win this game. They played well enough to win this game. And what LeBron James did, to have one of your teammates, and I love team sports, but also I hate team sports because you got to rely on people to make sure that they know the same situation. It's tragic. It's tragic. Now, and if they had any hope, you can't give away a game. It's the most lopsided final since the 91 Iverson, right?
And you were right there.
01, yeah, 01, yes. And you can't win a series giving away a game, especially when they have home court advantage and the talent, the difference between the talent between the two.
If you thought the Cavs were going to have a shot in this series, any 50-50 game had to go their way. If you thought, just like with Houston, when Houston, there was a 50-50 game in Game 4 against Golden State, they won it. 50-50 game in Game 5 against Golden State, they won it. It's like, oh, now you have a chance. Houston's way more talented than Cleveland and had home court. All right, so I understand there were other things leading up to this. There was an egregious call by a referee or an egregious overturn by a referee. We'll get to it. There was Kevin Love fouling Steph Curry on an and one when you're up 2, which you just can't do. There's George Hill simply missing the shot. But to quote Jeff Van Gundy, dumb will get you beat. And as much as I personally like JR, as a basketball player, he plays dumb. And guess what? It was going to be hard for JR to trump what he did at the end of the first half from a basketball IQ perspective. You remember that play?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Tries to come in the back door with Steph Curry on a half-court pass. There's less than 2 seconds to go.
Even if you steal that ball, it does you no good. All you have to do is stay in front of Steph. He goes for a steal. Steph hits a 32-footer to tie the game at halftime. This is to not know the score in the waning seconds of an NBA Finals game is a sports crime. Like you can make physical errors. You can make mental errors. Mm-hmm. You can make clutch situation errors. You can make fatigue errors. But I don't consider this a mental error. I consider this an all-time gaffe. A mental error is not realizing, oh, the 8-second clock's winding down. I got to hurry up and get it across half court. To not know.
Yeah, I think you can put them all in the same family.
Sure.
When you screw up like this, when you're 14 years into the league, you've been a starter for pretty much your whole career, 4th straight final with LeBron. How can you not know? Like, how can you not call a timeout? He's talking about, I was waiting on my teammates to call timeout. If you knew there was a timeout, you should have called it as soon as you rebounded it.
He didn't. But for people that don't know, set the stage just a little bit. Give people an idea, because it did end late last night. Well, what happened at the end of the game?
The Cavs were down 1. LeBron finds George Hill. And this is the other sports tragedy part of it. You said it's tragic. LeBron does something that, in my estimation, LeBron's the only superstar in the history of the league that in this situation would have made that play. Maybe Magic, but Magic wouldn't have been in the situation to have 49 points. LeBron is playing as good of a game as he's ever played, on as good of a run as he's ever had. They have the ball down 1 with less than 10 seconds remaining. And LeBron sees a cutting George Hill and says, you know what? I trust my teammates. Fires a pass into him. It would have been a layup. Klay Thompson does the only thing he can do, because Klay's playing on one leg, basically. Played well, by the way. Grabs him. So George Hill goes to the line. That's the thing that's so crazy. For JR to say, I thought we had the lead, and he can say what he wants after the game, but he mouthed to LeBron, I thought we were ahead. That would mean he thought the game was tied going into the final possession, because he saw George Hill make the free throw. So LeBron trusts George Hill. Says, you know what, I could go for my first career 50-point playoff game. I could go for my 3rd game winner of these playoffs. I'm going to trust George Hill. He finds him, makes the right play. George Hill makes the first, misses the second, and it leads to that.
Yeah, and it wasn't after seeing George Hill play a brilliant game. So to have that type of faith in a player who was subpar, now that's LeBron James, and you have to be able to give him credit. People won't, because there's other things that they'll try to talk about, But that was a great observation by you because they had 4 other people in the lane. He would have had to force up a bad shot. He got a better shot for his teammate, didn't convert to a win.
How deflating was that, and did that lead to basically the Warriors waking up and saying, oh, hold on, let's just win this right now, and then going off on a stretch in the
No, the Warriors made shots in overtime.
Right.
It's hard as a team, especially when you're on the road. The theory is when you're on the road, do you go for the tie or go for the win? When you're on the road, you go for the win. Because they have the home crowd, you go for the win. So that's what the Cavs were trying to do. And when you go to overtime, when you know it wasn't something that the Warriors did, and it's self-inflicted, it's hard for a team to recover. And when you talk about the biggest, in the last 20 years, this is the biggest discrepancy that we've seen as far as an underdog, and you give away game number 1 on the road, it becomes hard mentally for a team to be able to recover from that. I'm very interested in see how they do this weekend as far as a team, what comes out of the conversation. Does JR finally admit that he did it? Because that's criminal, too, sitting there just lying after the press conference.
And saying I thought LeBron was going to call timeout, almost putting the blame on the guy who had carried you guys here. And the other thing that happened in overtime is this. We have seen LeBron in year 15. He has learned how to budget his energy to where he has something left for the end of fourth quarters, something he didn't always do. Sometimes he would exert himself earlier in his career in the first 3 quarters and break down at the end of games. LeBron didn't budget his energy for an overtime. And in overtime, he wasn't able to carry them the way he had in those 4 quarters. And it was just such a deflating error.
All right, so the Warriors escape with a 124-114 overtime win at Oracle. We'll talk so much more about this coming up. But on the other side, can this series be closer than we thought as we move forward? That's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we're going to hear from Steve Kerr in a minute. But first, some highlights from last night. LeBron imposing his will to the basket for the slam. That's how LeBron does it. Part of his 51-point night.
He did a great job of mixing up intermediate jump shots. Only shot a few three-pointers earlier, but getting to the rim, very, very aggressive.
This is something people wanted Houston to do more of, to try to get to the basket more against Golden State when they didn't have a rim protector out there. LeBron did it at will.
Harden can't finish above the rim.
All right, more LeBron here. Drives, gets hit, still makes the bucket. So strong.
I thought this was going to be the game winner. This was an and one to put the Cavs up 2 right before the controversial block charge reversal.
And that was after Draymond almost put his eye out earlier.
Yeah, more on Draymond.
To continue going to the hole after being fouled like that, it really shows what he was thinking about going into that game and keeping it till late in the game.
Okay, do you see this? Steph Curry draws 2 defenders on the drive, then the no-look pass back to Sean Livingston.
Yeah, got lucky on this one. Got lucky, real lucky. You can see his body language talking to Sean afterwards. Sean needed all the length and the reach to be able to get this one.
Steph is an excellent passer, but he's a 9 out of 10 passer who passes like he's a 12 out of 10, which sometimes leads to some errant.
Yeah, sometimes he makes the pass a little more difficult than he got to.
Exactly right.
All right, more now on Game 1. And what a way to open up the NBA Finals with something nobody saw coming, a close game, a game that went to overtime, a game where the Warriors would go on to beat the Cavs 124-114. LeBron scoring 51, his high for an NBA Finals game. In fact, no one's ever scored 50 and lost in a final. Warriors head coach Steve Kerr weighing in on this LeBron team.
We're playing a great team. It's the finals. It's not going to be easy. I know everybody has been saying and writing that it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. We're playing a great team. They've been to the finals 4 years in a row, just like we have for a reason. They have a guy who's playing basketball at a level that I'm not sure anybody's ever seen before when you consider everything he's doing. And he's got a really good group of teammates around him, and they put a lot of pressure on you. They're really hard to guard, so it's going to be a tough series.
There was one true thing he said there. There was in that entire soundbite, there was one true statement he said. They got a guy playing basketball at about as high of a level as anyone's ever played it. That was the only honest moment.
Yeah, and you know what he's doing? He's doing things like we've never seen people do it. Oh, but the other guys are great.
Right.
Well, the reason why he's doing things like we've
he
never
has
seen
to.
someone do it because they're pulling it out of him.
Mm-hmm. Well, so listen, coming into this series, I don't think anyone thought this was going to be close. I think we were thinking maybe a game, maybe 2 games if they're lucky. What you saw last night, did it make you change your opinion on how this series is going to shift now moving forward, or how close it might be moving forward?
Only if they had won, it might change my opinion. Like, you can't give away a game in the finals. The team has more talent than you. The team that Steve Kerr's talking about, this team's been to the Final 4 straight time. But look, you've been twice. You had the MVP. Then you went out and got the second best player. So don't try to compare your team to what the Cavs team. It might be different if they had won that game. We don't know how the Cavs are going to react on Sunday. I mean, LeBron James, in 32, I think, Nick, of the 33 series that he has played in, he's won on the road. He won that game last night. JR lost the game. So if you tell me LeBron wins game number 1, yeah, absolutely. I tell Nick all the time, new information, you get a new opinion.
That was the only path to the Cavs winning this series, and it was a slim path. Involved them winning game 1, in my estimation.
Yes.
It was.
Because you got real pressure on Golden State that even supersedes the pressure that they had in Houston. In the Houston series, Houston had home court advantage. Golden State wins game number 1 and takes it from them.
And because here's the other reason. Forget the fact that since they added Kevin Durant, Golden State, the Warriors have lost a grand total of 2 home playoff games at Oracle. They were both in the last series. But it was also because you cannot expect this Cavs team to win all 3 at home. You can't, not against this team. So if you're only going to get, at best, 2 wins in Cleveland, the only path to victory in the series was to get 2 wins in Oracle. A buddy of mine called me yesterday and said, if the Cavs win, what's the story? And I said, I'll tell you, they split the first 2. They split the second 2. They then win game 6 at home. And then they say, we got the best player in the world in game 7. We'll see what the hell happens. This was their opportunity.
Yes.
This was their chance. The last 2 years, they have gotten beat by a combined 40-plus points, with none of the games being, I think, less than 13 in the opening 2 games in Oracle. And this was their opportunity. And the fact that LeBron at the end of regulation had 49, 8, and 8. And, yeah, they should have won, but they should have won by 2, by 1. LeBron had as good of a game as you can have in the NBA Finals. And it should have been barely enough. You can't expect LeBron to average 50 a game in this series.
Well, guys, yeah, they lost the game. But did anyone think that they were going to be basically tied down the stretch like that? Like, did anyone here think that it was going to be that close when the game ended? No, none of us thought that. No one out there thought that. Having seen that, you don't think LeBron, with now 2 days rest, can do it again? You don't think that this team says, hey, you know what? We actually can play. Like, yeah, JR lost this game, but we can play these guys. Like, you don't think it's good?
But now you got to pump them up and not deflate them?
Tell me individually, all right? Who got more confidence going into game number 2? Tell me one of the starters that they saw their performance for the Cavs and be like, oh, you know something? I think I'm ready. Who?
Why
Kevin
can't
Love.
you say that about the Warriors?
Because the Warriors don't need more confidence. The Warriors are the overwhelming favorite.
Kevin Durant didn't play good. They won. All right? Draymond, he played an all-round game, didn't shoot the ball particularly well. They won the game. They got away. They feel like they escaped. They're like, yeah, we got confidence because, man, we played bad and we escaped with the win. There's no one outside of LeBron that's going to be looking at the stat sheet, look at the film, and be like, you know something? I got more confidence going into game number 2.
I slightly
Kevin
disagree
Love
with that.
bit.
I think Kevin Love a little bit. Kevin Love, this is one of the best offensive finals games he's played. 21 and 13 will take from Kevin Love.
Let me tell you something. Kevin Love will come back down to earth.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I don't expect Kevin Love to play better. I expect Golden State to make the adjustments against him.
100%. I was just responding to when you're saying who has more confidence. Kevin Love, after missing the last 2 games, playing at that level against this team probably has more confidence. But, Jenna, to answer your point directly, you said none of us thought it'd be close. And it was close. So why can't... If you'd have told me yesterday, LeBron's going to have, arguably, the greatest finals game anyone's ever had since Elgin Baylor, I just said, oh, maybe the Cavs could win. LeBron's going to have a 50-point finals game, just the 6th ever, and do it on the highest efficiency of any player ever. Then I'd be like, oh, they could win. You guys know how I think about LeBron. You can't do this every night. This will be what the odds are, the overwhelming odds are. This is the best game LeBron's going to play all series. because you can make the argument it's the best game LeBron's played his whole career. So the odds are it's going to be the best game he plays all series. That's why it's such a wasted opportunity.
LeBron scores 51. The rest of the starters score 40. All right? So, no, there's no way that they're taking more confidence in game number 2 after giving away game number 1.
I hope I'm wrong, Jenna. I hope I'm wrong.
I can't believe I've become like the Cavs supporter on the team here. Coming up, did the refs blow the game for the Cavs?
Oh.
Someone blew the game for the Cavs. We're going to figure it out. That's next on First Things First. For some stories to start your morning, brought to you by Ace, the helpful place. Kevin Love had a nice showing in Game 1, like we talked about. That after clearing concussion protocol before the game. Put up 21 points, had 13 rebounds in the Cavs' loss yesterday to the Warriors. Nick, how impressed were you with Love's performance?
It was one of the better finals games he's played. He made an egregious defensive mistake down the stretch, fouling Steph for an and one when they were up 2. But offensively, he was unafraid. He was shooting jump shots rather than trying to really post up when he didn't have the advantage. I thought Kevin Love played as well as you could have hoped he would play coming back from the concussion.
Yeah, late in the game, he made a big 3. Faking the pass, knocking down that 3. I thought that was one of the big shots in the game, especially coming after the concussion. He's had a couple concussions. You don't know what you're going to get. Now, that might be one of the things that you pointed out encouraging moving forward, his play.
All right, on the flip side, Kyle Korver saw limited minutes and didn't do much with his limited minutes on the floor. 16 minutes, just 3 shots, a mere 3 points to show for the sharpshooter. Nick, what'd you think of Korver's performance?
This is why that last year in the finals he was borderline unplayable, is he has to be on fire offensively to make up for his defensive limitations against this basketball team.
And he has so many defensive limitations, he started making mistakes. We expect Kyle to spot up, shoot. But he played dumb basketball. They had a couple switches where he was supposed to switch. He couldn't even read the pick. Left guys wide open trying to be hugged up to the one defender.
And he was hugged up to guys like Sean Livingston,
yes,
Kevon Looney. And
didn't play real smart.
I thought JVG did a really good job in broadcast pointing that out. You got to know your personnel. Korver's always going to be athletically limited, but he's always been smart defensively. He was not himself yesterday. He's a guy they're going to need.
JVG. 2 unstoppable basketball forces make for solid NBA drama. LeBron and Steph's end-of-game interaction, just the latest example of why this series has been so competitive. Both stars led their teams in scoring and assists. Chris, what'd you make of all the trash talking at the end of the game?
No, that's what LeBron was supposed to do. Steph was going to the hole. He tried to put it off the glass. LeBron smashed it. And LeBron said something to him.
Steph said something to him. According to the people at courtside, Steph said to him, you couldn't let me have that. And LeBron got angry.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that they've had in these finals going before. So, no, he ain't going to let you have no layup at the end of the game. You're still out here playing. LeBron should keep playing hard. I don't mind it because later on they talked and everything. They realize that they are the faces of the NBA. I don't mind a little trash talk. It was heated.
I don't mind it either. I totally understand why LeBron was upset in the moment because these guys are laughing and giggling. LeBron feels like he just got a stomach punch in the way the game was ending. And Steph's like, oh, you can't let me get that layup for the numbers? Like, I understand why LeBron's immediate reaction, even though these guys are friendly off the court, would be like, man, miss me with that.
No, I told him, get out my face.
Get out my bleeping face.
All right, finally, LeBron. 51 points, the most he's ever had in a finals game, along with 8 rebounds, 8 assists. Nick, can you put LeBron's night into perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it is now one of the 3 best finals performances ever. Jordan's 55 points against the Suns in the midst of the best series Jordan ever played, the 93 finals against the Suns. A 61-point night by one of the most underrated players in NBA history, Elgin Baylor. And then LeBron's 51, 8-8. Of course, it's the first 50, 8-8 in finals history. It's the highest shooting percentage on a 50-point night in finals history. And it gave LeBron his 8th 40-point game of these playoffs, which ties...
This year?
This year. Of these playoffs. His 8th 40-point game of these playoffs. In his 19th playoff game this year.
It's got to be the best sequence of playoff series by anyone in NBA history.
It is trending that way. Right, so it's the most 40-point games in a playoffs ever. It ties Jerry West. And in the finals, LeBron now has more. Now listen to this. He has more 40-point games in the finals since he went back to Cleveland.
In 4 years.
In 4 years. Than Jordan had in his entire career. more 40-point games in the finals in these last 4 years than all of them, obviously, against this Warriors team, this great team, than Jordan had in the entirety of his career.
Even you probably couldn't have imagined. You knew LeBron had to, you and I talking privately, LeBron was going to have to play at a level once we started the Pacers series and we could see the back and forth. But there's no way you could have imagined 8 40-point games.
It's insane.
And potentially might have a couple more. To me, I told you, I was with Michael Jordan. I traveled with him. In that Phoenix series, he was unconscious. He was really, really unreal. This is the best that I've seen anyone play in the finals, and I would say in NBA history.
It's such a shame because if he had a legitimate number 2, can you imagine how much more competitive this would be? It would just make his life a little bit easier. He's doing this
2,
by himself.
A legitimate 3, a legitimate 4.
Here's the thing. While I would have liked, and I think C used the words properly earlier, the Cavs deserved to win this game. I would have liked Cleveland to win this game. LeBron not having a legitimate number 2 is why we're getting to see this version of him. The I have to do everything version of him. The guy that seemingly can't get tired. Like, if he was on a better team, we wouldn't see that. And I just want to remind the audience real quick, the last 3 playoff games LeBron's played. So an elimination game against Boston, an elimination game against Boston, and a game that he played like an elimination game, game 1. He's averaging 44, 11, and 9 while averaging 47 minutes played. The fewest minutes he's played in those 3 games is 46 minutes. Like, this 3-game stretch rivals almost any 3-game stretch he's put up in his career.
Do you think he'd rather have the numbers? Obviously, that happens when you have to single-handedly win games, or maybe numbers come down a little, stats come down a little, and make these wins a little bit easier?
Oh. LeBron just wants to win. He don't care what he has to do. He don't care if he scored 10 points, 60.
You don't think so?
Oh, no.
Winning? LeBron's about winning. You think he wants to lose for the 6th time in the finals? He's got 3 finals wins. He potentially would have the 6th loss. Absolutely, Jenna. 4 more wins. That's what LeBron wants. The stats and everything, they're just a side conversation as far as LeBron James in his career.
And LeBron's stats, because of longevity, are going to be unimpeachable. The only part of his resume you're going to be able to poke holes in is the lack of titles. So if you're asking, in this series, would he rather average 40 in a finals loss or 20 in a finals win? It would, of course, be the latter, but there's no path to victory.
They didn't get the win, but I don't know who votes on the final MVP. I'm just going to tell you, I think LeBron's going to win MVP. Just like Jerry West. If they lose this series, I still believe LeBron. It's going to be hard for KD, for Steph, to be able to top what LeBron did, even though they did lose in game number 1, regardless if it's 4, if it's 5. Now, the longer the series goes, it increases LeBron's chances of being the MVP. But that is one of the things I'm going to be watching going to Sunday's game
All
number
right,
2.
let's take a deeper dive into one of the more controversial calls in last night's Warriors win over the Cavs. Under 40 seconds to play, Warriors were down by 2 points. Kevin Durant drives to the lane, crashes into LeBron, so refs call it a charge. Would have given the Cavs the ball. Then they go to review it, and they reverse the call. KD hits 2 free throws, and the Warriors go on to win. Let's hear from LeBron on the controversial sequence.
I read that play just as well as I've read any play in my career, maybe in my life. I seen the play happening. I knew I was outside the charge line, and I knew I took the hit. I don't know what else to say.
They called a charge. Right, and LeBron was clearly 4 feet outside the restricted area. So it doesn't make sense to go review something that the review is if he's on the line or if he's close to the charge circle. That's the review. He wasn't close. So what are we reviewing? Either call a blocking foul or call an offensive foul. And, you know, for our team to come out and, you know, play their hearts out and compete the way we did, man. I mean, it's bad. And it's never been done before where you know he's outside of restricted, and then you go there and overturn the call and say it's a block. It's never been done, ever, in the history of the game. And then tonight in the finals, on the biggest stage, when our team played well, played their ass off, man, it ain't right. It ain't right.
CC, would you say the refs cost the Cavs the game? Was that a turning point, that call right there?
I don't like to get into, in sporting events, saying the ref cost them the game because there's so many plays during the course of the game. If JR gets the rebound, calls timeout, Ty Lue calls a play, they get a chance to make a buzzer beater, a walk-off. There's a number of plays that happened during the game, been like, yeah. But it's hard to overcome the refs and JR. So both of them had an impact on the game, because if they don't get that call, then does JR need to call timeout? He brings it back out. They foul him. He's shooting extra free throws. Either they're up 2, 3, or 4 potentially. So, no, they didn't cost him the game, but it's hard to overcome a call like that. I like LeBron and what he said in what he said in the interview, though. He read the play. The reason why he read the play, he knew Tristan was on his right with KD. He knows KD cannot shoot with his left hand. That's the reason why he knew he was going to go to the right. Now, from the referee standpoint, the only thing I can say, because I knew it was above the restriction area, LeBron, right before contact, he threw his left shoulder, so his body wasn't square to KD. So when they went to look at it, that's the only thing that I could think, because in taking a charge, you can be moving as a defensive player. But because his chest wasn't square to him, because KD hit him in the chest. And coaches teach basketball, if you're going to take a charge, take it in your chest, because that's what the referees are looking for.
But here's the problem. And you know, one of my hobby horses is replay in sports in general. This isn't a Johnny-come-lately opinion by me. But I will get off that and just talk about this specific play. You are not allowed to review, was he moving? Did he pivot? You are only allowed to go to the review to see, was he in the restricted area? Now, they have changed the rule that once you review that, you can review all parts of the play. And that's what ended up happening. But look at that. He's 3 feet outside the restricted area. There is not a ref on the floor that legitimately thought he might be in the restricted area.
And the ref in the corner, who had the best view of it, he called it immediately a charge.
And if they would have called this a block in real time, so be it. But what you can't do as an official... So
you would feel more comfortable they called a block?
Absolutely.
Just charge or block?
Charge or block.
Just the norm.
What I'm not comfortable with is the referees, and I don't use this term lightly, breaking the rules. The rules are very simple. You can only go to replay to see if he was in the restricted area. They went to replay knowing he was not in the restricted area so they could see, was it a block or a charge? If the NBA wants to open up replay to these types of things, fine, but that's not the rules.
You could see Tony Brothers, he was calling a block. He was behind the play. Tony is to our right in the screen, all right? He was getting ready to call a block. But Ken Mauer's down in the corner. He has the better view. He calls it. He calls a charge.
And that's why I think they went to replay.
Because the other ref had called the block.
Exactly, because they were like, oh, you saw a block, I saw a charge, let's review it. That's not allowed.
No, you couldn't.
Period, point blank, that is not allowed. And so and you hear LeBron. LeBron says all the time, like, you live with the result. You live with the result. What's so painful for Cavs fans, and most notably for LeBron there, is he said, I read the play as well as I've read any play in my career. He leaves Draymond. You see Draymond there, leaves him wide open. He knows KD's never passing there. He knows KD can't go up with his left. He gets exactly where he needs to get to make the play. Right after getting an and one to go up 1, to save the game defensively. He gets rewarded for it. And then the referees go outside the rules to change the call. Forget the fact that I actually do think the right call was a charge. That it is here's the other thing that bothered me, see? You have Steve Javie on the broadcast. If Steve Javie's there because he's an expert in officiating, he said, yeah, you leave this a charge. If he can think it's still a charge, how can you have enough evidence to overturn what was called on the court?
And how hard is it, CC, as an athlete, to have to endure that, knowing you were in the right for the most part, and then have to get back up to try to finish out this game?
I mean, you know the refs are part of the game. Like, you know that. Like, ever since you were a kid.
But this is not something that happens every game. This was something that shouldn't have happened.
It's not as if the refs just started getting on the court, though. You realize as a competitor, the coaches prepare you for that. You're going to get some bad calls during the game. You can overcome that. But you can't overcome that and JR.
And how did LeBron respond to it? The next time down the court, he got a layup to put him up 2. And the next time down the court, he found George Hill for what could have been the game-winning layup for what should have been the game-winning free throws. LeBron responded to that fine. LeBron and the Cavs did not respond to that plus the JR thing in overtime, and it's that the Warriors are obviously the more talented team. But when the more you watch this, and when you see how clear LeBron is outside of that restricted area, he was closer to the dotted circle under the free throw line than he was the restricted area. You can't justify going to replay there. Ty Lue's right that we've never seen a guy that far out the restricted area, then go to replay and then overturn the call. And that would have been Cavs ball up to 36 seconds left. That's the situation they would have been in. Like, it doesn't get bigger than that.
All right, that plus JR plus a couple other little things. And it was just a very frustrating night all around for the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, we'll take a break. Antoine Walker is going to join us to break all of this down. That J.R. Smith's terrible play at the end of regulation next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. NBA champ Antoine Walker is here with us. What's up, Antoine? Ooh. Lots to break down, right? Yes. All right, let's get into it. By now, Antoine, you probably heard the NBA Finals started last night. You probably also heard the Cavs team should have perhaps won this game. With less than 5 seconds to go in regulation, J.R. Smith had a chance to win it, but basically dribbled out the clock instead. Seemed not to know the game was tied. There was some confusion over timeouts. Smith was seen mouthing to LeBron afterwards, "I thought we were ahead." Cavs go on to lose this game in overtime. Here's an exasperated Ty Lue on the end of regulation.
What did you say, or what did JR say to you in the locker room about the play at the end of regulation?
He thought it was over.
Thought it was over.
He thought we were up one.
George shot the free throw. I got the rebound. We were tied ball game. We had a timeout, and I was trying to get enough space because obviously KD is standing right there. Trying to get enough space to bring it out to maybe get a shot off, and then I looked over at Bron. He looked like he was trying to call timeout, so I just stopped, and then the game was over.
You knew you were tied. You didn't think you were leading.
No, I seen it. I knew we were tied. It's just I thought we was going to call timeout because I got the rebound. I'm pretty sure everybody didn't think I was going to shoot over KD.
Did he think that the game was tied, or did he think that you guys had it salted away?
How do I know that?
Or did you discuss it at all with him at the end of the play?
No. They asked me if I talked to JR about it. I said no already. I knew it was a tie game. We was down one. George Hill went up. He made the first one. We got the offensive rebound. You know, I thought we were all aware of what was going on. That's my view. So I don't know what JR was thinking. I don't know the question that you're trying to ask.
I was just trying to see if you knew exactly what his state of mind was. Did he think that you guys had it won, or did he think he was trying to make a play? Not sure.
What do you mean I'm not sure? No, I don't know his state of mind.
Did you know if he knew the score?
Thank you.
That was very frustrated LeBron James afterwards. But Antoine, I saw a little eye roll there at JR's explanation for what happened at the end of the game. What was your reaction to how that whole sequence went down?
I mean, obviously, as a player and being on the court and being in game situations, you know everything that's going on.
Or at least you better.
Well, the coach and everybody's you're going to know the timeouts, you're going to know the situation. So I can't give him a pass on that. He knows what's going on. And you kind of heard it in LeBron's interview. He knew what was going on. He knew the time and situation. Everybody on the floor knew that. But my problem with JR is nothing you can do about the mistake that you made. But come in the locker room, apologize to your guys, and take the blame and responsibility. And say, hey, look, my fault. I'm going to try to make up for it next game. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm with you. Go to the podium, too. You see they had to catch him outside in the tunnel where he avoided the media. Like, I'm with you. We're all grown. We're all adults. We all know what happened. We've been doing this long enough. JR, 14th year in the NBA, playing his 127th playoff game, 61st playoff start. In 4 straight finals, there is no excuse. But We all make mistakes, but let's just be a man about it because we're accountable to each other. That's what we say. This is my brother. I'm accountable to him. He's accountable to me. Right there, JR was not accountable to his teammates. So I agree with you.
And you know, it hurts LeBron James, a guy who vouched for you, who brought you in, who told him to pay.
Resurrected his career.
Yeah.
They threw him into the trade.
And then he's been able to stay there, got him paid, and made sure they paid him. And now you go in a situation where you don't come and be accountable for it. It makes it tough. LeBron James, T. Lue should not have to come to the podium and answer the question for you. It was my mistake. Hey, it's nothing you can do about it at this point, but try to make up for it next game. It's nothing you can do. I can't even make an excuse up for him. I want to because you know late game situations. Every play.
Listen, there is no excuse. Anyone that's watched basketball for any amount of time in their life know what it looks like when someone is trying to dribble out the clock. That is what you do. You go as far away from the other players as possible. You loop around. And then when he looked at LeBron, when LeBron's motioning like this, he looks up at the score, looks at LeBron, and you can read his lips. I thought we were ahead. Like, that is clearly what happened. And no, I don't know why JR wouldn't tell the truth here.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, when he looked at LeBron, when LeBron hand motioned, he thought he was saying pass to George Hill. He didn't look at the score. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have to, in real time, his hand motion made him look to pass.
See, I'm talking about here after the play.
Yes,
after the
absolutely.
Play. Once the play's over,
yes.
Then you see him look up at the score and he says, I thought we were ahead. But the other problem with it, this isn't not knowing you don't have a foul to give at the end of the first quarter.
It's not knowing the score. It's not knowing where you are.
You got to keep in mind what had just happened, the sequence of events. Did JR not know going into the last possession of the game that they were down 1? Did he not know that George Hill had made a free throw? Like, this wasn't a complex time score situation. It was as obvious as it gets. After a free throw on a stoppage. Like, that's why, man, Van Gundy says this and he's right, man. Dumb will get you beat. And that was dumb.
And last night, dumb caught up to him.
And then, too, with JR, you got to think about it. I'm so frustrated with him. I look at the play before halftime. I know that was huge, the three-point play. Gambling on the steal, when all you got to do is stay behind the guy. Then also the play, Steph Curry, when it's tied up, he goes by J.R. Smith. He blows by him and get an and one. So you got a guy that you trust, you believe he's going to make the right play and right decision. T. Lue and LeBron James have to decide whether or not they want to have him on the floor. It's no excuse for this. It's the NBA Finals. You got to be locked in, razor focused, and you win a series where you cannot have a lot of mistakes. You almost got to play perfect basketball to beat Golden State, and they did that last night, besides for a few small mistakes.
All three of you said this yesterday when I said, what's the only way the Cavs can win? And you all said, well, they can't. You said it, Cece, you can't make mistakes. I mean, that was just a huge mistake. But you made a really good point, Antoine. LeBron comes out there and time after time after time, he's trying to get the other guys involved because he knows that no matter what, this is still a team, even at his own expense, even sometimes taking points away from himself like he did at the end of regulation, hitting a cutting Jeff Green. And then for his teammate to walk into a locker room and say, or not even to come up to the podium and just say, hey, I don't know. This is what I thought happened, and that's it, and no explanation to the team.
I can't. If I'm J.R. Smith, you have to apologize to the team. It's the only way. You apologize, man up, say, I made a mistake. I'm sure this morning he's going to see enough clips and highlights and stuff to understand that he made a huge mistake and he cost his team possibly the game. I'm not going to say he cost them the series, but he cost them a huge game, and that's a game that's going to be very tough to get back. They fighting an uphill battle, so he's going to have to perform now.
We live in New York City. About 5 years ago, the back page of the New York Post is J.R. Smith forgetting the score of the game in a similar situation. Now, that was the regular season. That was obviously a less meaningful game. But to have multiple incidents as a professional basketball player where you don't know the score of the game being played, it's inexcusable. And for it to undercut what is in the discussion as the greatest playoff game, one of, if not the greatest player has ever played, I mean, that's just salt in the wound on it.
Yeah, to me, I'm not going to, when you blow a playoff game, you don't have to add anything to it. Forget who LeBron is. Man, you only got so many chances. I don't have no ring. Man, I'll break a dude's neck to try to get me a ring. And if a dude would lose a game, like you don't, man, it's bigger than the other people. Man, the accountability and the reason why you play team sports, because I can count on this guy. And this is what fans forgot last night. Man, it's pressure. Because you guys think JR didn't know. I believe JR knew. Because I've seen guys come out of a timeout. Coach called the play, everything. How many timeouts? We go over every situation. And in the moment, they freeze.
You panic.
And that is the pressure of playing competitive sports at a high level.
See, he knows. At this point in the season, I would say even the last 2 months of the season, all you practice on is late game situations to get you ready for the playoffs. You talk about it, you look at time and score to understand every situation that's going on. He knew it was a mistake, and he didn't own up to it. And it's unfortunate that he wasn't man enough to do that for a guy that they trust, LeBron trusts, and believes in. You got to come in and apologize to your team and coaches that you made a mistake and try to move on from it.
How important was game one for the Cavs? How important is that first game, and what does this do for them now?
Well, I said this yesterday. I thought if it was the one game you're going to steal, it was game one. I thought LeBron James was going to have to play 45, 48 minutes. He was going to come close to scoring 50 points. I did not know Kevin Love was going to play. We did not know that at that time. And then he get a double-double effort from him. He plays great. And he did everything possible. LeBron James, what I loved about last night, he made the right play. Even when they missed, he made the right play.
Well, and I don't want this. There's two parts of this play I don't want to be overlooked. One is how it started, which is LeBron has 49 points. He'd never had a 50-point playoff game. He's already made 2 game winners in the playoffs. They're down 1. He has the opportunity to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. He sees, as C pointed out, the lanes. They've got 4 guys in the lane.
4 guys with a foot in the lane.
And then sees George Hill. Klay Thompson falls asleep for a minute. George Hill cuts to the basket, and he trusts his teammate. And then the other part of it, and I just want your opinion on this real quick, how does JR even get that rebound over Kevin Durant? How does Kevin Durant not blocking out in that situation, a guy 7 inches shorter than him?
I don't know. I think obviously if Durant, if they make the right play, we'll be criticizing Durant right now. And
Durant
we all
fell
over him.
asleep.
Oh, he
Got
did
pushed
fall
underneath
asleep.
the rim.
I think he thought George Hill was going to make it, 80% free throw shooter. They're going to call timeout and lack of focus.
All right, we're going to break down much more from this game. That's next. Stick around. First things first. Back here on First Things First with Antoine Walker. Last night's Overteam Warriors win had a little bit of everything. Insane LeBron, insane J.R. Smith, insane calls, and one Draymond Green. Always investigating and instigating would be another way to put that. With less than 5 seconds to go, Tristan Thompson ejected for a hard close foul and then got into it with Draymond. I didn't really see what happened there, Antoine. It's hard to see where he started it. But, Antoine, how hard is it for players to deal with Draymond Green's antics?
I mean, it's tough, but this is, CC, you talked about this yesterday, about they need to make it physical and start something.
Yes.
And I like what Tristan Thompson did. Obviously, I'm not really, it doesn't kill me if a guy shoots the ball with the shot clock right now, but I understand what Tristan Thompson
it's a normal NBA rule. When the game is out of hand, typically they would dribble it out and hand it either to the ref and not shoot it.
And then, but you know, Draymond Green came up walking up clapping to him, telling him bye.
Yes.
So I like the fact that Tristan Thompson did something that actually was physical with him. And now he set the table, though. You need something. The table is set.
And Draymond.
Especially when you're the underdog.
And Draymond was doing
talented.
his dancing directed at a player who wasn't even playing in Kendrick Perkins.
Yes, I saw that.
Pretending he was waving pom-poms. Draymond is one of the greatest defensive players of this generation. He also can be a front-running punk on the court. I don't use either of those words lightly. I know the way he conducts himself, that right there, when you guys have stolen a game, is BS Bush League behavior. Period. Point blank.
But Nick, you have to realize when you come into the game, the scouting report, that is Draymond Green.
Agreed.
He's limited as an offensive player, great perimeter defensive player, can switch 1 through 5. Hey guys, don't get in any exchange with him. He is a professional trash talker. That is all part of what he does. So Draymond, to me, was doing what he's supposed to do. He's not going to get 20 points. He's not going to get 20 rebounds. But he will get you 10. We'll get you 12 rebounds, 8 assists, and he is the edge player. He's the only edge player that they have.
Well, I'm just curious why that bothers you so much, because CeCe talks all the time about these guys in the league, in football, that were just known for the way they talk, and they don't shut up, and they ride you, and I mean, that's part of who they are, and it helps pump them up. How is it different in this sport?
Well, it's a different sport. You're not allowed to hit them back. Like in football.
No. In football and basketball, they both talk trash.
I understand that.
Like, as a quarterback talk trash, he can't hit back. As an offensive player, you're limited as far as what you can do. Man, trash talking is a part of sport, and especially basketball and football.
I don't have a problem with him trash talking. If that's his identity, and that's the way he shows toughness for Golden State, I have no problem with it. My thing with Draymond Green is that he couldn't play in the late 90s, early 2000s. Obviously, he couldn't play in the 80s. Charles Oakley, Anthony Mason, Dennis Rodman, it ain't you just get to talk. You got to fight for real. And it may go into the locker room. And I don't know if Draymond Green built for that. He's great at talking on the court. They break it up. Tristan Thompson hit him in his face. He didn't do anything. He could have reacted. All of a sudden, now you don't react. So if I'm Cleveland right now, I got him right where I want him.
And that's the answer to the question. Is I understand there's trash talking in the NBA. On the spectrum of guys, who talks the least trash of anyone? We'll pick my guy, Jetty Osman. He's on this end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum of the entire league is him. The other end of the spectrum of the histrionics when his team has taken control of the game, very often through none of his doing, is him.
That's what that team needs. That's who Draymond is. Draymond is being true to himself and to his lack of athleticism. That is his edge.
But see, you know what his team doesn't need is when he goes 4 fingers to the eyeballs of LeBron.
That's just a hard foul.
No, hold on.
That's part of the game, too.
Agreed. Let me finish real quick. To get a technical protesting the call. Korver ended up missing the free throw. He smacks LeBron flush in the face. That happens. That's not a dirty play. He got him clean up top, got him in the face there. But to argue that call,
man, there's
and
no
get
one. Every NBA player, every call they say, "Oh man, I didn't touch the dude."
Right, but there's a reason he leads the league in technicals every year. See?
Yeah, but so what? He getting ready to get his 3rd championship, Nick. It's working. If it was Steph, if it was Clay, we would have a conversation.
That's it. It's working for the Warriors.
This is who this guy is. He knows they stole him. He said it in the press conference after the game.
It works until you get what happened 2 years ago, when he gets into it and then he gets suspended a game and you lose the series. And these type of situations like last night can happen again if he gets suspended. You see right now, Cleveland's got to have some confidence the rest of this series, being the way they played last night. Obviously, LeBron was great, but they had a good team effort last night. They should feel good about themselves.
Had a great game plan.
Yes, they should feel good about themselves. And if Draymond Green wants to continue to play at this, if I'm Tristan Thompson, I'm not backing down from this.
Yeah, the reason
who needs who more? They need Tristan Thompson more, or you need Draymond Green more?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm Tristan Thompson, I'm coming out, I'm looking for it.
The way you combat trash talking is get buckets, get stops. All right? Kendrick Perkins, he can't help the team out. So guys on the sideline, that's the only thing that they can do is cheer
Back in the
to
day,
get involved.
You suit them up.
Oh, well, yeah.
Back in the day?
They don't want no part of the old NBA. They prefer it the way it is right now.
But you don't think there is a standard that great players, that you don't think Draymond's a great player? Let me ask you.
No, I don't think Draymond's a great player. I think he's a utility tool that has been utilized great. All right? I believe he's a 2nd-round pick. And if he didn't have Clay, if he didn't have Steph, and if he didn't have KD, and you see that when they're out.
They complement his skill set.
He's in the perfect situation.
There is no doubt.
But I think if you win Defensive Player of the Year in this league, at least in my eyes.
That don't make you a great player.
Okay.
It makes you a great defender.
Okay, so fair enough. But he's an all-star. He's a champion. He's Defensive Player of the Year. For him to be taunting Kendrick Perkins, who was in the G League.
But this is what they do.
But who's they? When you
this
say
is what a guy who has that role. That is what his job is to do.
To taunt guys that aren't in uniform?
Absolutely, especially if it gets up under their skin. Absolutely. And you know something, Nick? If you were a basketball player, you would be doing the same thing. You would be talking trash to people, getting under their skin psychologically. That's exactly what you would be doing.
You'd be very good at it.
Agreed. But it doesn't. Here's the thing. If you can say that's how I would play, I don't know if you've seen my high school tapes. You're kind of actually right. That is exactly how I played. You are correct, sir. But guess what? People hated me. And you're allowed to say, see, that this is who he is. And I'm allowed to say, and that's why I don't like him.
If I'm on a team, I want a Draymond Green, okay? I need a guy that knows what his role is and is going to do everything that he can. He's going to go right to the edge, and then every once in a while, oh, excuse me, sir, he stepped across.
Did you ever play with a guy like Draymond?
Yeah, of course, all the time. You're going to always have one of those guys. I played with some of the biggest trash talkers. Gary Payton was one of the biggest trash talkers ever, but he could bag it up. I'm not saying Draymond Green can't bag it up. He's been a good player so far in his career. But I played with Gary Payton, who talks trash to everybody.
But were you okay with him doing that?
If Draymond was not on the Warriors,
because he can bag it up.
All right? If Draymond was not on the Warriors, his game would change. All right? You can talk more trash when you got more firepower. I talked a lot, man. We got Randy Moss. Oh, my goodness. Yep.
That's what's so aggravating, I think, is it seems like it's front-running. It seems like, okay, you guys had 73 wins. You then had Kevin Durant, and you're still, you are still doing this. You are still doing these types of...
If he not, he going to be out the league, Nick. When he stopped talking trash, I talk to Coach Izzo all the time. And Coach Izzo stays in Draymond's butt till this day. Draymond really respects him. And Coach realizes, man, there are going to be some times where I'm gonna have to get on the kid because he's going to bend the rules just a little bit. We talk about it all the time, Draymond and Draymond's antics. But if he doesn't bring that type of energy, Draymond is just an average player. So that right there I respect, and I respect what he brings to the Warriors.